In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into the intricate relationship between politics and culture, particularly focusing on how governmental actions shape societal perceptions and vice versa. The discussion begins with a reflection on the cyclical nature of politics and culture, emphasizing that while politics can influence culture, the reverse is equally true. This dynamic has been recognized by the left for a long time, allowing them to effectively shape cultural narratives through political means. Shapiro highlights a significant shift in the image of the U.S. military, contrasting its traditional portrayal as a formidable fighting force with recent efforts to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) within its ranks. This shift has been met with criticism, particularly from the MAGA right, who argue that such initiatives dilute the military's primary purpose of national defense. Shapiro cites examples of recruitment ads that focus on personal identity rather than military prowess, suggesting that this has led to a decline in recruitment numbers. However, the tide appears to be turning with the appointment of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who is seen as a pivotal figure in restoring the military's image as a strong, battle-ready force. Hegseth's recent actions, including a pause on gender-affirming medical procedures for service members and a halt on promotions for individuals with a history of gender dysphoria, signal a return to a more traditional military ethos. Shapiro argues that these changes are not only necessary for maintaining military effectiveness, but also resonate with young men who aspire to join a fighting force rather than a socially engineered organization. The podcast discusses the cultural backlash against what Shapiro describes as radical left-wing wokeism, suggesting that this backlash has contributed to a political realignment favoring conservative values. Shapiro posits that the recent rise in military recruitment numbers reflects a desire among young men to serve in a military that prioritizes strength and effectiveness over social engineering. The conversation then shifts to the renaming of military installations, specifically the decision to revert Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg, honoring a World War II hero instead of a Confederate general. This move is framed as a strategic effort to reconcile historical legacies while reinforcing a narrative of American heroism and valor. Shapiro also addresses the broader implications of government efficiency initiatives spearheaded by the Trump administration, particularly through the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. The discussion highlights how these efforts aim to cut waste, fraud, and abuse within federal agencies, a move that has drawn ire from Democrats who perceive it as a threat to established bureaucratic norms. The podcast critiques the reaction from former Treasury secretaries and other Democrats who frame these efficiency measures as a constitutional crisis. Shapiro argues that the real crisis lies in the unchecked power of individual judges who can issue nationwide injunctions against executive actions, effectively undermining the authority of the presidency and Congress. Shapiro emphasizes the problematic nature of national injunctions, which allow a single federal judge to halt federal policies across the entire country. This practice raises questions about the balance of power within the government and the role of the judiciary in shaping policy. The podcast suggests that the left's invocation of constitutional crises is a tactic to regain control over the narrative and the institutions they feel are being threatened by the current administration. The episode also touches on the cultural landscape, particularly the reactions to celebrities like Taylor Swift at major events such as the Super Bowl. Shapiro notes that Swift's presence was met with boos, which some commentators interpret as a reflection of a broader cultural shift towards traditional values and a rejection of perceived elitism in celebrity culture. The juxtaposition of Swift's booing with applause for Donald Trump during the event is presented as indicative of a reclaiming of cultural spaces by those who feel marginalized by the current political climate.